Hello and welcome to UX Tracks. My name is Dan and today we're going to discuss user flow diagrams. Why are they important, how to build one and what to do with them. Recently I had a client who came up to me and told me, I have this complete UI design and I need a live prototype for this. Can you do this for me? I said yes, of course, but first I'm going to take at least 2 hours to get familiar with the project, to try to comprehend the relations of those screens that some other people have created. If I had the user flow diagram in the very beginning, this process could take me half the time. The user flow diagram is actually something between a mind map and the flowchart. What I mean by this is you have a complete sitemap, but also through this you can see how the user goes through the screens from point A to point B. You can see the different levels of hierarchy in the screens. Also, based upon the user flow diagram, you can create use cases, scenarios, so you can do your user testing much more comprehensively. Also, you can have a very crude ideas about information architecture that can help backend developers develop their databases for this application. Also, if you're starting as a UI designer, it's always much better to have one of those next to your wireframes so you can pay more attention to the bigger picture and try to see the whole application as one unity rather than just screen after screen after screen. Also, if you want to expand your UX knowledge from the UI designer perspective, this could be the best way to get into UX by learning how to create user flow diagrams. Now, the next thing you're going to see is going to be my screen, where I'm going to try to recreate a user flow diagram of an application which is very familiar to all of you, and that's Instagram. So let's see how does this look like, how the process of designing user flow looks like, and what's the end result.
There are many tools that you can use for this kind of work. Probably the pen and paper would be the most obvious, but I like to use one of the tools which has a very big integration possibilities. It's called draw.io, and the best thing is that you can integrate it with Google Drive. So if you have like big project folder somewhere on cloud, you can integrate this diagram into that project and you can open it from Google Drive so you can see it. And in order to edit it, you actually have to go to draw.io, but never mind that. Let's create a new diagram. I'm gonna call this Instagram UFD, as in user flow diagram. Now it's going to ask me where should I want to put this in Google Drive, so I'm just gonna choose. Okay, so here we are now. As you can see, this is some sort of paper, and on the left you have some tools that you can use, some items, and on the right you have the settings for them. Let's choose some bigger paper, let's say A3. Okay, so I have this paper right here, and I'm going to use this to create my user flow diagram. Now, I do not actually use that many tools from here. I just only use a rectangle and arrows, but I color code them in order to make things much more clear. So let's begin with dissecting Instagram's user flow diagram. First of all, what you have is when you open application, you have a simple login screen. Now, I'd like to keep this a bit more organized by using 3 different types of rectangles. One of those is section, because underneath it are many screens, and as you know, Instagram has 5 of those sections. The section for your profile, for the likes, for actually taking the photos and putting them online, the timeline, and the search section. So those are the 5 main sections in the Instagram user flow diagram. Now, I'm going to color code this by making it a bit thicker and also changing the color to this kind of brownish red. Never mind. So this is a section rectangle. I'm going to call this login. And now the regular ones are just simple screens, so they are not actually that important, so I'm gonna revert them back to the thin black ones like this. So this is a screen, and below that I have another one which is called, actually you can copy these items by pressing Control and dragging. So when I release it, there you go, it's copied. And this one, I call it on-screen activities. So that's something that is going on the screen. So these are the three main types of items in the user flow diagram that I like to use. So I'm just gonna call them. Okay, so these are the main section. These are the main items in this user flow diagram. Now, when you first open Instagram, well, of course, it depends on if you have an account or not. So you have to take those things in mind. But for the purpose of this video, let's say that you already have an account and that you actually just logged out. So the things that Instagram offers you are these. So you have, I'm gonna call this login section. So below this is going to be the flow until you get to those 5 sections that I was talking about. And I'm gonna start with one of the main things on this screen, which will be log in as existing user. This is what you have when you open up Instagram, the first thing. And the other things are below this in the hierarchy. So you have this sign up and sign in. So basically on those you can also do this login as existing user. So you would add those as on-screen activity here. I'm just going to reduce this a bit. And I'm going to say login as existing. And also you have the same thing here. So let's just copy this and place it here. Okay. So now when you hover over these rectangles, you see this little, let's call it X's. And when you hover over the X, you see this green thing. This is actually what you can use to connect these screens. So I'm gonna hover over this and I'm gonna grab this node and get it down to this. Okay, so this is a first connection in our user flow diagram. Let me just, okay, now it's straight. Now after this screen, you can get to here and also to here. I'm just gonna change the colors of these arrows not to bother me too much. I'm gonna keep them black. Okay, so basically this is it. You first have this, and after this, these are 2 actions which lead to different screens. Now on-screen activity is login as existing and enter new account, and here is sign in as, you know, as existing. I mean, this is actually not as existing user. This is like this would be, because Instagram is connected to Facebook, this is going to be like login as a user which has this Facebook account connected to the Instagram account. So basically it's not actually an existing user, but this is just like login as the last, let's say last logged in user, but sign in as someone else. Okay, never mind. But these are the on-screen activities for this section. So I'm going to connect also those. And I usually do this like this when I approach it from the back, so I can list other activities not down below. So when you create an arrow like this, you can adjust by pressing these blue balls. So you can drag them like this, and now it's much more visible. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to connect all of those. I'm gonna adjust this. Okay, so let's say that this is a basic login sequence for Instagram. I'm just gonna move those a bit more further to the right, so I can pull a straight line from here, and you'll see in a minute why. Okay, now let's make those 5 sections. The first one should be camera, of course. Second one should be browse or search, because both of those functions are there. The third one should be timeline. Now I'm sorting this out just like the ones when you open the application. This is what you see: likes and profile. Okay, now these are the section screens. Now let's say I can go straight down to this. Also, it more often is this, but since you can access all of these from this this timeline, so I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to connect all of those nodes to their corresponding places. So basically you can go basically anywhere you want after you log in. So this is why I'm creating this this way, this user flow diagram I'm creating this way. Okay, so now from all of those you can also access to all of those. So I'm just going to do this because this is one node actually. Okay, now you see that basically whenever you log in you get to these screens. After you pass the login phase you get to these 5 sections. Now the first one is of course the timeline, and from those you can go to these other sections. Now of course the sections themselves should be connected because this also works both ways. And here on the right you can adjust the end of the arrow. So I'm gonna make these duplicate double-ended arrows just because you can go through this more easily. So you can recognize that this section, from this, anywhere from this section you can immediately go to this or to this or to this because of that bottom menu. Also those double-ended arrows should exist here, and I'm gonna make them right now because you can always go back and log in as the user that was last logged in, as we were talking about before. So let's see what can you do on the timeline. What can you see on the timeline? You can see posts. So I'm gonna make a post screen, like a photo, and I'm gonna make a profile because when you see someone's post you can always see their profile. So these are the things that you can go to by using this timeline. Okay, so I'm gonna also double-headed arrow goes here because you can almost always go to the profile and then to see one of these posts and then go to other profile which is tagged or something like this, and you can, this is basically interchangeable completely. I'm just gonna connect those like this. Of course now basically all of those are going to be double-ended arrows because you can always multi-press this button and get back here. Now these are the screens that you can go from this timeline. So let's add one more for stories. And then I'm going to add one more for messages, because you can also access your messages from this timeline screen. Okay, now for the on-screen activities, what do you have here? What can you do on this timeline? You can you can add a story. What else can you do on this screen? You can open a profile, but that is of course just a direct link. So this is on-screen activity for this timeline. So those should be only activities that are going to happen here and nowhere else. Now let's see for the browse and search. You also open up and see posts. So I'm going to duplicate this and switch it a bit like this. Okay, and also you can see the profiles, and these are also double-ended arrows because you can always go further in. And I'm going to connect those browse and search, and from this what you can this is not on-screen activity. You can search for hashtags, places, etc., etc. Now when you open search, this should be actually a screen from which you then open up when you actually input a query, then you get the search for places, for hashtags, for people, for other types of things. I'm not actually familiar that much with it, but this is basically the process of creating a user flow diagram for a simple application. Now, Instagram is by no means a simple application, and this is recreating of the user flow as I see it while using the application. So this is by no means official user flow diagram of Instagram, probably because their UX designers maybe think differently than me, and maybe my method is not actually very much precise for this. But for smaller projects, for someone who is just starting out in UX design, I think this is a very viable tool to begin creating a bigger picture about the application that you're going to build. I can continue working on this, and I probably will, and I'm going to attach this file with this link in the description below this video. And I hope that this process was clear for you guys, and if you liked what you saw, you could like this video, maybe share it or subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. So thank you very much for your time, and bye.